Let's talk about the Salesforce Tower, the tallest skyscraper in San Francisco, which is this building. Now, it's been loved by a lot of people. It's been hated by a lot of people. Some people say it's absolutely the ugliest building in the San Francisco skyline. My personal opinion, this is how skyscrapers are usually built, and this is how skyscrapers usually look. Not gonna lie, the Salesforce Tower, it's not that bad looking of a tower, all things considered, but it's earthquake resistant. They spent over $1 billion to build this. And if you look at the San Francisco skyline, you can't miss it, right? It's just as iconic as the 181 Fremont building, and it's just as iconic as the Trans-America Bay Pyramid building. But now, San Francisco's highest profile buildings are set to plunge in value, putting the city at further risk. And if you go all the way down and look at the Salesforce Tower, address 415 Mission Streets, this is by far one of the best places to get an office. And back in the old days in 2019, if you go on LoopNet and you want to get an office next to a Salesforce building and next to like the rooftop park, it's going to cost you a lot of money. And even now, right, prices around this area are still hovering at roughly $50, $60, sometimes even $70 per square feet per year. It used to be double that price, and some buildings in this area even was hitting closer to $200 per square feet per year back in the old days, like before the pandemic. But now, look at how sad some of these prices are dropping to. And prices will continue to drop further. But what's really scary is the valuation of the building is $1.33 billion. They spent about $1.15 billion to build it, and the valuation is $1.33. But here's the thing, is it even worth $1.33 billion? Because this is actually an old valuation from a couple years ago before the pandemic. It's a massive office of 1.4 million square footage of space. And what's really crazy about this building is it's right next to the Millennium Tower right here, which is literally a tower that's leaning. And who knows, it might even lean and hit the Salesforce Tower. But that's a whole different story. But if you look at some of the other buildings for sale, it's truly frightening. It makes you wonder, is the valuation of 1.33 too much? Maybe it's only a building worth less than $400 or $300 million. Because look at this. Downtown San Francisco office building on Spear Street, which is another good street for offices, sells for 66% less than the assessed value. So if you look at this building here, it was assessed at $121 million. But if you look at 60 Spear Street, it was sold for $40 million. So that's about 2/3 off, which is better than any Black Friday deal on Amazon. So if you look at 60 Spear Street, it's actually a pretty good office building. We're not talking about an office building in the bad part of town. This is like the one close to like the water. Look at this. This is like a high-end Class A office building. Put a little guy down on Google Maps and you do see these are all very, very good buildings. These are not lousy buildings by any means. And guess what? This building is literally just 2 blocks away from the Salesforce building. I could say that Spear Street is probably better than the location of the Salesforce building, because in San Francisco, a lot of the offices and condos that are very close to the water are generally more expensive. You get better views. Obviously, there's less homelessness, there's less crime, there's less drug use. And then once you get a little bit further down to like the Civic Center, that's where like the craziness starts. But around this area, like Spear Street, the Salesforce Tower area, it's generally like a decent areas for offices. So the mere fact that buildings around the Salesforce Tower is selling for 66, even 70% off shows you maybe the valuation of 1.33 isn't its true assessed value. And what's really scary is I'm sure the building owners probably took out loans and finance with the building itself as collateral. But now the building's assessed value has went down so much, a lot of small regional banks are really freaked out. The reason why you're not really seeing a new assessed value for some of these mega tall skyscrapers in San Francisco is because they don't want to freak any more investors out. Okay, 1.33 billion, no way they could sell this for 1.33 billion. First of all, you can't even find a buyer nowadays who's willing to pay this much money. And right now, even if you want to buy shares of the building, people aren't doing it because the vacancy rates of the building is pretty high right now, because Salesforce is actually moving themselves online. The reason why it's named Salesforce Tower is Salesforce is the biggest tenant. If you look at this, the other skyscrapers around the area have already become vacated. And these are high-end Class A skyscrapers, okay? Like I said, if you want to have a very good office in San Francisco back in the old days, this is where you want to be. Okay, it's right next to the Montgomery station where people are dropped off in the BARTs, so it's perfect, right? And Salesforce is leaving a San Francisco office tower bearing its name, and they've also gotten pretty empty with the Salesforce tower. There's even a video I made several months ago about like a game room in the Salesforce building, and nobody's in it. It's actually pretty empty. There's some crazy nice amenities, crazy nice views and lounges, but it seems like a lot of office workers just don't really want to drive all the way to San Francisco for a job. And look at this. San Francisco's downtown is never going back to the way it was. This is talked about by the Salesforce CEO. And the thing about the Salesforce CEO is the dude is kind of right. He's constantly saying that why can't the city just clean itself up? He's actually getting pretty frustrated about this whole situation. And he even threatened to pull out one of the biggest AI events in the whole entire world away from San Francisco, their Dreamforce event. But eventually, they're going to be hosting the Dreamforce event again in 2024. And what's really funny is every single time they host the event, they actually clean up the streets for a limited time only. And then after the event ends, they just let everything go back to the way it was. Good old San Francisco. San Francisco just never truly changes. In fact, people are saying that if you try to get people back into the San Francisco offices, good luck. San Francisco CEO is closing his $215 million company's upscale office, saying that no matter how many cool lounges and cocktail bars you have, nobody really wants to go back to work. In fact, most people even say that they much rather just simply work from home, which is getting more popular than ever before. So it makes you wonder and scratch your head, is the iconic Salesforce Tower worth $1.33 billion? Short answer is absolutely not. Okay, and the reason why is because the tenant rate is going down. And if you look at the other buildings around it, the vacancy rates are heading towards 40%. Many buildings, yeah, their vacancies are maybe 10 to 20%, but also keep in mind that many of the offices in San Francisco, they're still being rented out because they signed a lease for the next few years. But the buildings themselves are vacant. There's no office employees. There's so many offices in San Francisco where the lease is still going on, meaning it's still being rented, but there's no office employees. Go ask the bar guys, the club guys, the restaurant guys. They're saying that the vacancies feel more than 33% than the reported rate. It feels like 50, 60, 70%. In fact, the downtown traffic rate is so low, even the downtown San Francisco McDonald's is shutting down after 30 years of business. Not the McDonald's. It's really hard for McDonald's to close. In fact, you kind of need virtually no human traffic around to have a McDonald's close down. And there's even 7 Starbucks locations, 3 Lucky supermarkets, and 3 Targets closing down around the vicinity. And that's just not good at all, right? Salesforce Tower is an absolutely great looking building. There's even like the Salesforce Park as well, this beautiful rooftop park, which is pretty vacant. Go to San Francisco today, go watch some of the downtown office tours. Just seems like there's barely any office workers in the area anymore. You might see a few open AI guys, but other than that, many offices and many tech employees are simply moving online. Construction has also dropped to an all-time low, with the number of new housing units joining the market per year is less than 500 in San Francisco, whereas it used to be 3,000 units per year. Just shows you that even the real estate tycoons don't really want to dibble and dabble in this SF market. So thanks for watching, guys. Comment below. Let's see what happens here. If San Francisco does some drastic changes, they might bring themselves back.